My name is Rebecca Strand Johnson. I am an interviewer for the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County, and today I'm interviewing Jack Snyder. This is October 5th, 2006, and we're at the Cheviot Library. Our camera operator today is John Barth, and we'll get started on this interview. Thank you very much for being with me, Mr. Snyder.
It is a pleasure.
And I would like to know first a little background information. When were you born and where?
Cincinnati, actually, in People's Corner, Walnut Hills area, 1926.
1926.
Father was a veteran of World War I. My mother was, she was from down in Kentucky. She was a farm girl, and we were fairly poor family back in the Depression days.
What did your father do?
Father was a laborer. He worked for the General Hospital in Cincinnati. It's now a university hospital, and it was called General, and he did odd jobs over there, labor jobs. So he was one of the few people in the neighborhood that had a job. A lot of people were on welfare. So we were sort of lucky to have breadwinner in the family.
You mentioned that he was a veteran of the First World War.
He was in the Army during World War I. Prior to that, he was in the Marine Corps. He did a stint on one of the battleships when he was a younger teenager. Then he was drafted into the Army. He spent 2 or 3 years in the Army during World War I. Mm-hmm. And heard a lot of stories from him.
Is that what got you interested in the military?
Well, yes, that plus the fact that I had spent a lot of time in the Boy Scouts. As a youngster, I was always going to scout meetings, and I liked outside activities, and it just sort of built into me to be outside and to be regimented, and I liked the regimentation part of it. So I went in at a really early age into the Navy.
So can you tell us the story of how you got into the Navy?
Well, I've told this so many times, I don't know if I told it to you or not, but I sort of tricked my dad into to letting me join. It was on Veterans Day in 1942. I told my dad, I said, would you sign if we went up to the recruiting station and sign us in? Would you sign the paper? He says, yeah, but he says, they're not open today. And I says, well, just in case they are. And he says, well, yeah, if they are, I'll sign them. So I knew they were open because I already talked to the recruiter up there. So we went up on November 11th, 1942, and I signed up. And the next day I was on my way to Great Lakes Naval Training Station.
Now you were a teenager.
Oh yeah, 17 years old.
And they let you go in at 17?
Oh yeah.
With parents' permission?
Right, yeah. Permission.
Were your parents upset with your decision?
Not really. Most of the young fellows in the neighborhood were going into the service at that time. The war was, and it's pretty heavy, I think, in November of 42. So it was just almost a year from when they were bombed Pearl Harbor, less than a year later that I went in. So I was in from 42 until 46.
Do you remember Pearl Harbor and what you were doing at that time?
Yes, I vaguely. It's the whole thing is like a dream anymore. I know what happened, but I can't tell you exactly what I was doing. When people ask me that, I always tell them I was probably out playing baseball because I was an athlete, and it was a Sunday, and I was probably out playing baseball. If I went to church, I don't remember what time it was, but it was. It's a dream. People that say, well, I was doing this, or I was driving on I-72, or whatever, I sometimes question if they can remember back that far the exact thing they were doing when they heard about that. Maybe they can. I can't do that. Can you?
15 is a long time ago. So when you got into the Navy, and you went into the Navy,
Right in the Navy.
correct, and you started at Great Lakes, how
Mhm.
long were you in boot camp?
Boot camp was until, was November 11th, until Christmas. At the end of, after Christmas, in December, we were finished with boot camp. I guess it was like 6 weeks. And then I was stationed, they sent me to hospital corps school in Great Lakes. It was another part of the station up there. I went there for training, and I became a hospital medic, or they call them hospital corpsman. Pharmacist maybe was the ranking that eventually you would get, petty officer, but at that station of your career, it was just a hospital corpsman. So I stayed there for about 4 months, and then was shipped off to New York, and went there to Brooklyn Naval Hospital for additional training as a hospital corpsman. And then from New York, I caught a ship in Norfolk. They sent me to Norfolk, and went to an invasion of Sicily. Well, we went to Africa, and we staged over there with the other ships. And I was on an amphibious attack transport.
And what were your responsibilities as a hospital corpsman?
Hospital corpsman at that stage was like a nurse, or a field medic. We would take care of the injured and treat
Right off
sick.
the battlefield?
We would actually go in with the troops. And then we'd set up an aid station, and we would evacuate the injured and the dead, and we'd take them back to ship, and then we'd treat them back there, transport them back to a safe place, or in some cases we'd just keep them aboard ship and they'd die, and then we'd have to do something with them.
Your first battle was the Battle of Sicily?
Sicily, the invasion of Sicily.
The invasion.
That was my first invasion.
And do you have recollections of that?
Yes, there are a few things that flash back from that. The thing that I remember most is staging in Oran, Africa, where we were all picked up troops over there from Northern Africa. And we did get a little time off over there. They let us go ashore, and we were able to walk around in the city of Oran, see the people and see the things. And one thing I do remember is the way they sold their food over there. It was laid out on pieces of tin. The old goat meat and camel meat was all laid out in the street on tin, and the flies were flying around it. And that was their open market. Like our Philly market, that was their Oran market. And they told us that be careful drinking the water. A fellow would come around with a goat bag, and we'd be giving you water, and he had 1 cup, and if you wanted to drink, you'd drink out of the same cup that everybody else did. So we were warned to either get wine or get one of the soft drinks at the bottom. So that's what we had. It was hot over there. And I do remember the actual invasion being my first. I can remember the German planes diving on us and dropping bombs and trying to blow us up as we were going in. And we would fly these, what they called the balloons, that dive bombers were not able to come in too close because these balloons had a real heavy cable on them, and that heavy cable would prevent them from coming in too close to them. So they would do their turn above the balloons and then drop their bombs, and the bombs would hit some of the ships. We didn't get hit. I did see some bombs come fairly close. And I can remember one time when we were strafed by one of the planes, and then the shells were chopping around on the deck, and I dove through a hatch and really fell 1 floor down trying to get out of the way. Just scratched up a little bit, but nothing major. But those are the flashbacks that I get from that invasion. I had a total of about 13 of them all told. The rest of them were all in the Pacific. when we got back from that invasion, they sent us to New Zealand. Our ship went to New Zealand through the Panama Canal and up through the West Coast and out of San Francisco and then on to Hawaii and to New Zealand. And then in New Zealand, I was transferred to another attack transport that was called the USS Harris, the one I spent most of my time on. And that was an APA 2. From there, we did all of the invasions in the South Pacific. We did Tarawa and Kwajalein and Leyte and Lethe and Guadalcanal. We were there. We were in Iwo Jima, different places. I think it was Lebanon. 2 or 3 of them were in the Philippines. But these are like dreams. When I try to think back on them, I get flashes of certain things. Can't remember all the details, and 2 years over there, you can't remember all the detail. Remember certain stories of things that you did. Like in the Philippines, I remember one time when we went in on an invasion and set up our aid station, and we were evacuating casualties. And we got a little break, so the 2 of us wandered off, and we were going down the beach, and we heard some crying. What we thought was crying, so we looked around this one old shack, that was a straw shack, and we thought maybe somebody was buried under it. And we found a couple of cats. And so we took the cats back to the ship as souvenirs and as pets. And I had one in each pocket of my clothes. When I climbed back aboard, there was a captain standing there. And he says, "What do you got, sailor?" I said, "A couple of souvenirs." He says, "Take good care of them."
So they let you keep the cats?
Let us keep, So it was, one of them disappeared real quick. I don't know what happened to it. The other one stayed around for a while. He got trapped in a hatch and broke his tail, and eventually he disappeared, so I guess I don't know. But we had a mascot aboard. It was a dog. So most of the ships had some kind of animal.
Really?
So we had a dog.
Gosh, I think the cats take care of the rodent problem.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I guess. Those are the kind of flashbacks that you get, things that happen. I can remember my first invasion in the Pacific. It was in Tarawa. We took the Marine Corps in there, and they really got chopped up. The Marines just took it real bad. Got a lot of them killed. One of the boys that was brought back to the ship, or Marine Corps, when we got back to the ship, we took them back. After 3 or 4 days, we'd go back to the ship, and then we'd treat them until we got back to Pearl Harbor or a hospital ship or somewhere. And one of the fellows that I was responsible for had died aboard the ship. So whenever they die aboard a ship and we have lack of space to keep them, we bury them at sea. And when we bury them at sea, we have a ceremony where they're carried out to the edge of the ship on the railing. They're put on a board in a shroud. We put a shroud around the body and put a heavy weight between their legs, which we get out of the bilge of the ship, and that's what sinks the body. But we would bury them at sea and have a forever ceremony. And then wherever we were at sea at that particular time, they would mark that as the place on Earth that you were. So many minutes north, south, equator, whatever they do. And that's your burial site. Those numbers that are on the ship's log is where you're buried. So when we got back to port, and I did get a leave eventually, I came back to Cincinnati, and this boy that had died there was one of my patients, was from Sailor Park. So I went down to Sailor Park and talked to his parents, told them what had happened, and they were real happy to hear that. they had thought that he got killed and was buried over there on Tyrol on the beach somewhere. I informed them, I gave them all the numbers and everything. So those are kind of flashbacks that you get when you remember these things.
What did the Navy do with the enemy combatants?
We treated them the same as Army. Any casualties, enemy casualties, they were put in the same ward with the American casualties, unless they were so hostile that we couldn't keep them on ward and put them into the grave. But the majority of them were kept in the ward. They were pretty well chewed up. We would bury them at sea as well. Instead of covering them with American flag, we covered them with white sheet. But we gave them the same rights as we did our own. We had a lot of enemies come aboard ship as casualties, and then we take them back and they were put in hospitals or would be put in prison camps or whatever.
How many burials do you think you saw on a general day?
How many what?
Burials at sea?
Burials? After an invasion, we would probably bury maybe a dozen. After an invasion, maybe a dozen would die before we got back to where we were going. And I had 13 invasions, so I saw a few of them. I took part in most of them because most of the time it was the hospital corpsmen and the pharmacist mates that would be working with patients would be what we call pallbearers and carrying them out.
And there would be a service as well?
Oh, we had service. Everyone was buried at a regular religious service. We had a Protestant chaplain and a Catholic priest, and whoever was available would do the ecumenical service. So even there would be a minister or priest for the enemy as well. They would say.
How many men were on these amphibian transports?
On our ship?
Mm-hmm.
We probably had about 800 on board our ship. And then there was another couple thousand troops that we carried, plus all the equipment that had to go around. There was literally hundreds of these ships that we pulled in on invasions. I mean, just from shore, from horizon to wherever you were, you'd see none of the ships. I mean, this was massive. And when the enemy would come over and strafe us and dive bomb and try to hit, kamikazes would try to hit you, you could see the sky would just light up like downtown Cincinnati. The fireworks display down there, that would be about 1,000th of what you would see in the sky. I mean, the whole sky was white from miles and miles around. Every ship would be firing at these planes, and it was just, it was a show that you'll never forget. Seeing all these things. Occasionally, you'd see a plane hit a ship. You'd see that they mostly went for the aircraft carriers and the big ships. They went for the ships like I was on occasionally if they couldn't get to the big ships. But you would see them hit aircraft carriers. And you'd see the large explosion and the fireball go up there. But we were usually inside of the circle. The destroyers and battleships and all were outside, and we were on the inside. So kamikazes would come over and they would go to the big ships first. But we had them come fairly close to us. I know one time we had a kamikaze land off the fantail, maybe 40, 50 feet, and exploded. So we were their target. And they had hit it, they were probably on us. We were all there.
You were in the South Pacific then?
Most of the time.
What period of time?
Well, it was from middle of 43 until 46.
So you were there when the bombs hit Nagasaki and
Yes.
Hiroshima?
Yes.
You were preparing for the invasion of Japan?
We had the invasion troops. We had the troops for the invasion of Japan. And we had already staged for that operation, and it was prepared to go in and do the invasion. When they canceled that, and instead of going in as an invasion force, we went in as the occupational force. So all the men that we had aboard our ship was part of the occupation. So we went in just a few days after the signing of the armistice.
Where was the first place that you entered in Japan?
Tokyo. We went right into Tokyo Bay, Yokohama Harbor, and we took the troops in there. It was another flashback is when we went in there. It was, I tell this story and people don't believe me, but there was two of us for the beach party, we call it, a group that went in to set up these stations so that if there's any casualties, we have a makeshift hospital on the beach. And we were on the dock, and we decided that we wanted to take a walk in town to see what Tokyo looked like. So two of us walked in ahead of the occupation troops, and the troops were prepared to go in and march through the town. And we thought, well, we'll go in there a little bit and just nose around, two teenage punks that don't know what they're doing. Normally we wouldn't carry any firearms because we were medics, but that day we did carry a couple of firearms, and we walked through town. And as we walked through the city, literally thousands and thousands of people were on the streets waiting for the occupation troops to come through. And about every 50 feet, there was a policeman or a military personnel, a Japanese military person. And instead of guns, they had sticks, like just a long stick. And they were sort of like the crowd control to keep the people back so that when the troops came through. So here we are, two young squirts going into town, thousands of people. And as we were walking down the sidewalk, the people would back away from us. And it was the weirdest feeling. It was like walking in a bubble. And I tell people I felt like I'm walking in a bubble in Tokyo. And 30, 40 feet back of us, side of us, before there's nobody, just a bubble. And as we walked, the bubble went with us. People backed off. We decided that we wanted to go into a store. So we walked into a store. Everybody in the store left. And the store owners giving us signs and signals, what do you want, do whatever you want. And we're just looking around, is all we were doing. Backed out.
Did he expect you to take things?
Yeah, I guess. He didn't know what was going to happen. He thought maybe we were there to kill him or something. We had guns. And so we just looked around a little bit in the store, and we walked out back into this bubble again. And we're walking, and here's a theater. Hey, let's go in the theater. So we go into the theater, and the manager, he makes half the people in the theater clear out, set us down, and we're watching some Japanese movie about, I don't know what it was. But we stayed there for 5 minutes or so, and then we were to get out of here. And we got out of there, and we were in a bubble in the theater. And then back on the street, walking in this bubble again, and sort of up a hill, and we saw this, it's like a religious temple or something. So we thought, hey man, that looks neat. Let's go up there and see what that is. So we started up the hill towards the temple, and at that point the bubble started shrinking. And the people were saying to us, no, I don't think you want to go there. So as the bubble started shrinking, we started thinking, we said, let's get out of here. So we turned around and we made it back to the ship, but that was an experience I think I'll never forget.
Did your superiors know you did that?
Probably.
Would they have said it was okay?
They would have probably said that was dumb. But we did a lot of dumb things when we were young in the service.
So, how long were you in Tokyo setting up?
We were there for just a few days. We were able to unload the troops, and we were only there for a few days. And then after that, we reached trips back to wherever we went. I forget, maybe Pearl Harbor or somewhere, picking up more troops, bringing them back. We made trips to northern Japan, Hokkaido, Sapporo. We were up there taking troops. We made trips. We went to China one time. We anchored off of I guess it was Taku, China. We went up the Tinsin River, and we were there for 3 or 4 days. I'll never forget that. I got yellow jaundice when we were in China. I was there on shore leave, and one day we got to go into town, and I got yellow jaundice. Not long after that, I was in the hospital for a month. So that's why I can never give blood now, because of that liver disease that I have.
You got that from eating something?
Apparently, from eating in China.
What were your impressions of China, if you can remember that?
It's vague. I have no specific impressions. I just, like any other foreign country, nothing special. I wasn't there long enough to really make any impression. We were there for just one day, and a bunch of sailors running around in a strange town. And one day you're either looking for a girl, or you're looking for something to drink, or you're looking for some place to take some pictures, or you know what the sailors do in shore living for one day.
What did you do on? What did you like to do for recreation when you were in these parts?
Being a young man, I spent a lot of my time skating. I was a skater when I was here in Cincinnati. As I grew up.
Roller skating.
I did a lot of roller skating. Sephirina's in Warren Hills. We lived about a block from there. And I did, on my shore leave, I would take my skates. In New York and San Francisco and Seattle, or in the United States, I would take my skates and I would find a skating rink and I would go and skate. That's how I spent my evening. I was still too young to be chasing a lot of girls and drinking it like some of the older guys, but that was my recreation. I was a pretty good athlete and a fairly decent skater, so I had fun doing it. I even took my skates, went to New Zealand. I've got patches from skating rinks in New Zealand, Australia when we were there. I did my skating in Africa, but up and down both coasts, east and west coast, I had rinks that I would go to all the time.
So what did you do on some of these islands that you were visiting that had no civilization, had no established cities?
Other than the islands that we invade were the ones where the Japanese had occupied, and we would go in and take the troops in. We would leave there. We'd never stay more than a few days. The Navy would. The Army or Marines, they would stay there. We would leave. Now, there were times when we would have some recreation time, or some slack time between invasions, and we might go to a small deserted island somewhere, and they would say, okay, let's lower the boats and you guys can go in and hunt shells or swim, do whatever you want to. And these were small islands in the Pacific that there was nobody there. It was absolutely deserted. So we would go in there, and they would put cases of beer for the guys to drink when you go into the island. So it was a recreation day that R&R. Everybody was allowed to have 2 beers, and they would take enough cases in there, so you'd get 2 beers. If you didn't drink beer, you could trade it for chocolate, candy bars, or cigarettes or something. So the guys that drank a lot of beer, they were trading canned candy for beer, and they were getting soused. And the rest of us were hunting shells and swimming, and scuba diving and whatnot. But that was our recreation at sea. Or they might anchor in a lagoon somewhere and let us go swimming off the ship. So we would just actually swim right around the edge of the ship. And we'd put boats out, we wouldn't dive off the ship. Some of them did, but most of them would just go down in the boats and swim around.
And with 800 men on board, it must have been a large ship.
It was big, it was a huge ship. We had enough personnel on there to have our own dental lab. We had a 2-seat dental office. Later on, after some invasions, after the invasions, you went back to ship. You got back to your regular duties, and my regular duties later on was that of a dental technician. So I was assisting our full-time dentist, and whenever we would go into a dock or a shore or somewhere, and the ships that didn't have dental offices on it, they would send their patients over to us, and we'd do all the dental work for our small boats and ships and landing craft and different places. And then as a dental technician, my dentist, Dr. Tom, would tell me to take the second chair. He said, "We've got too many here, you're going to have to do the simples." So I would do all of the simple fillings and cleanings and all of the minor things, and then he would do all the major things. I would assist him in the extractions, helping chisel the jawbone out if they had to, and I would be his assistant, just like his dental nurse. But I would put on a white gown instead of a dark gown, a blue gown, and I would go to the second chair and I'd start drilling. It's kind of neat because I had access to all of the equipment, so when we'd go into a small island and we were able to gather up shells, cat's eye shells, I'd take those back and I'd make bracelets and necklaces and things to send back to my family and girlfriends and so forth. So I had access to all that. That was good. And I actually slept in the dental office because I had my bedroll in one of the closets in the dental office instead of having to go down below where all the guys were on bunk 4, 5, 6 on a rack. I'd keep my roll up there in the dental office and get all that fresh air. So I had it pretty nice towards the end.
Do you feel you did more than, because of necessity, what you were trained to do when you were out with the casualties, bringing them on board after some of these invasions? Do you feel that you had got a lot of experience doing things that were just things they never told you in training?
It was hands-on. I can remember coming back aboard the ship, and then we would have to assist the doctors in the operating room. We had 2 operating rooms, and we had a staff of 6 doctors. So we were almost like a small hospital ship.
And how many casualties did you say not casualties, but injuries would you get on board?
We might get 100, 200. If we got too many, we would take the officers' mess hall and we would convert that into a casualty center, and then they would have to be with the crew. But their mess hall was fairly close to the sick bay where I worked, and it was easy for us to convert that.
So you had a lot of
we had
injuries coming.
A lot of injuries, very, very heavy. And everybody did everything. You rotated. You worked in the pharmacy for 6 months or 3 months, and you worked in the emergency room. You worked in the dental office. You worked in different places. In the operating room after the invasions, we would be assisting the doctors. I can remember times when I would be holding a leg and they'd saw it off and you'd carry it out and throw it overboard because there was no keeping it burnt. So we'd actually take the leg out and toss it over the side, put it in the bag. It was hands-on. You learned a lot. You saw a lot. I do it with other people. I couldn't do it with my own daughter or my own son.
I don't think anyone could.
It's a dream. Things happen 50, 60 years ago. It's like a dream. And you talk about it, and you remember things, and it's flashbacks, and it's just something that happened. Would I do it again? Yes. If I had to, I would be happy to do it again. I like military life. I preach military life to kids when I give talks at high schools. I tell the kids that if they're going into the service, make sure that you go in as high a rank as you can, and that is by going to the Officers Training School or ROTC.
Now, did you make military your career?
No, I almost. After I got out of service,
How old were you when you got out?
20, I guess it was 20, 17, it was 20.
1946 then?
46. I was 20 years old. I hung around for a couple of years and took advantage of some of the privileges that the veterans had. One of the privileges the veterans had at that time was what they called the 52-20 Club, and a lot of us took advantage of the 52-20, and that is that for 52 weeks you were able to draw $20 a week. So if you were not working, you got automatically $20 for 52 weeks. At the end of that 52 weeks, you were back on the street again. But $20 was pretty good money back in 1945, 46. I spent a while goofing around doing different odd jobs, and in 48, I decided that I wanted to start building a career. So I took advantage of the GI Bill, and I enrolled in the University of Cincinnati. And as a veteran, I knew what the advantages were of being ROTC. So in addition to going to Teachers College, I also joined the ROTC at the University of Cincinnati Air Force ROTC. So when I graduated in 1950, December of 51, I finished, graduated in 52. I got my commission in the Air Force in 51. And I stayed 13 years in the Air Force as a reserve officer in active status. I tried to go back in. They wouldn't take me back because of my status as my MOS was that of a physical education teacher. So they said we didn't need physical education teachers, but
In Korea?
in Korea. So I wanted to go back, but they said no. So I just stayed in active for 13 years.
So you didn't teach?
I did teach.
Oh, you did teach?
I became a teacher. I started at University of Cincinnati, or after I graduated, got my bachelor's in 52. I started teaching in Cincinnati.
From St. Public School?
I was there for 35 years, with the exception of 1 year when I went to Oak Hills. I was an assistant principal the first year they opened. I got my master's also from the University of Cincinnati. I got that in 56, so I stayed on 4 more years. Mainly because the GI Bill permitted me to do that. And you had so many hours that you were able to earn. So I went as far as I could possibly go. Had I had more GI Bill time, I would have probably gone on to try for a doctorate, but I didn't. But I was satisfied. I did that, and I retired from Cincinnati Public Schools in 1986. Now, 20 years.
So it sounds to me as you feel that the Army did you well, or the Armed Forces. The Armed Forces did you well.
I would do it again. I was very happy. I loved it. I wouldn't give experience up for anything. And had I had the chance, I would have gone in. I would have made it a career had they taken me back in the Air Force as an officer. I was an officer, but had they activated me as an officer, I would have loved to stay in the Air Force.
Did you love it because of the travel, the work?
Travel was one thing, diversity, things that you can do there you can't do in a community and except in a Cheviot. In the Air Force, believe it or not, practically all Air Force bases have golf courses. And I love to play golf. So had I been in the Air Force, I would have probably been out on a golf course every afternoon. May have never gotten married, I don't know. But I did get married. I married at 51. I had 3 children. Now I have about 6 grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren.
Any of those children go into the Army, into the armed forces?
No. They're, my son is, he never went in. My 2 daughters, they all 3 went to University of Cincinnati, but none of them went into service.
What is your, what are the strongest impressions of the places that you visited, of the many travels that you made as an enlisted man? Where do you think that you have the strongest impressions?
Norfolk, Virginia was considered, I considered it a hellhole for sailors. And there was literally thousands and thousands of sailors there. And you were not a second-class citizen, you were a third-class citizen or more, because there were just so many sailors around. That's all. That I do remember that in Norfolk. San Francisco was a great liberty town. Seattle was great. Los Angeles was outstanding.
Why was that?
Well, you could just about do anything in Los Angeles. You could go anywhere. When we were there in San Pedro, outside of Los Angeles, the canteens were open, the USOs. They would take us into the movie star sections, and we would consort with the movie people, parties and things like that.
Did you get to do that?
Yes.
Anyone you remember meeting?
No one in particular. They were, at that time, I guess they were famous for being young, you know, remember who they were. There was a lot of good fun time. There was some good skating rinks in Los Angeles. I know there was 2 or 3 of them there that I used to go to all the time. And we spent a lot of time in the States picking up troops and supplies between invasions. It might be 6 months or 8 months before we'd get back, but when we got back, we would be there for maybe a month, getting ready for the next invasion. And we were able to go out on Liberty every other night, and so we got a lot of free time.
Before, when the invasion of Japan was being planned, and you were stepping up for it, what do you remember the news about the bombings in Japan, and then the fallout from that, the decisions, the fact that the invasion was no longer necessary?
No, it's not that. It was there, but it didn't register as being significant to me. Being a young man, it didn't register that much. Some people will tell you they can remember exactly what they were doing when it happened. I don't remember exactly what they were doing. If you told me what time of the day it was, I could probably tell you what I might have been doing, but I don't know exactly.
But did you, not to put words in your mouth, but was there a sense of relief afterward, or was it just the same kind of dale?
It didn't really make any difference. I mean, we still had a job, and we still did what we always did. The thing we were looking for more than anything else was gaining enough points so we could go home. And the more time you had overseas, and the more invasions you had, the more points you got, and everybody was looking for gaining points. Once you reached a certain point count, then you were eligible to go home and be discharged.
Because of the number of invasions that you were a part of, you must have gained your points very quickly.
Well, there was a lot of points. I got out sooner than some of them, but there were some that got out before I did. I mean, they had more than I did, and they had more time in service. And so I was satisfied. I had 3 years, 2 months, and 1 day exactly in there. And that was enough. I was happy to get back home, see my friends, and to do things I wanted to do. Back on the baseball field, back on the golf course.
Do you remember it being hard to adjust back to civilian life?
Not really. I didn't have that much problem, and I was able to integrate because of my athletics, because of the things that I did on the athletic field. It was just, I was back playing baseball probably the next week. When I went to University of Cincinnati, I played some baseball, I played some football. I was rushed into a fraternity because of my athletic ability, and they made me an intramural chairman for the fraternity, so I stayed in there and did a lot of that. That was my life. I didn't have any problem with it.
Back to when you were in the South Pacific, do you recall any other stories of when you would go into other areas of Japan, how the people treated you, or did you have much interaction with the civilians?
We didn't interact that much. The only interaction we might have is getting in a rickshaw and having them pull you down the street, or going into a store and getting something, buying some souvenirs, or there was no one-on-one contact with people other than business, restaurants, and that. They just treated us like anybody else.
And the South Pacific Islands that you stopped at, where there were villages?
Villages, there were times when the people were very appreciative of seeing you. Not us so much as they were the soldiers and sailors who were occupying. But when we were in the villages, we would be just there visiting. And they would say, "Hi, Joe," "Cigarette Joe," or whatever, bumming from you. Everybody was Joe, especially the Philippines.
Really?
They treated you in a nice side. I had no negative experiences with the people. It was a memorable experience, but not that memorable that I can tell you details. I just know that it was there.
Well, do you remember adopting the kittens?
I do remember. I remember things like that coming back aboard the ship.
Does it gratify you to talk about it now?
And yes and no. I do so many talks at these high schools, and I tell a lot of stories over and over and over again. And I kind of appreciate the kids when they look at you and they see, and this actually happened. And it's kind of fun. I like to talk to the kids.
What are some of the best questions that kids have asked you?
Well, the first thing I do when I talk to a group of kids, I say, "Well, I'm going to answer your first question before anybody asks me." And the answer is no. And they'll say, "Really?" I say, "Yeah." "Did I shoot anybody?"
I knew that.
Yeah, but that's usually if you don't answer it ahead of time. Did you shoot anybody? We only carried guns in my branch in the medical. If we had to, occasionally we might carry 45 if we were on the beach and they thought it might be hostile. Otherwise, we didn't have reason to. We were too busy treating the patients.
When you were in boot camp, were you given a choice as to what you wanted to do, or did they peg you for what they thought you wanted to do?
We were given a choice, but you didn't get the choice. In high school, I trained as a machinist, and I wanted to go in as a machinist mate. So they asked me what my choice was, and I said I wanted to be a machinist mate. Okay, 2, 4, 6, and you're all hospital corpsmen. Okay. And they just lined you up, and they said, you go this way, you go that way. And I said, okay. It didn't bother me because that had been part of my growing up anyhow in the scouting program. I was real active in the Boy Scouts, and first aid and that type of thing was human nature for me. So I didn't mind it at all when they said I was going to be a hospital corpsman. I said, okay, that's good, so I'll do that. No, I enjoyed it. I've used my skills and some of my experiences over the last 60 years a few times.
Never thought of going back into the hospital?
Hospital?
To work?
I had an uncle who wanted me to go in as a dentist. He was going to help me in dental school, and I want to go into teaching. I want to be with kids. So
You could have almost set up shop with your experience.
Yeah.
Probably need that license, though.
Yeah, I could have. Well, yeah, that's true. I would have gone in with an upper hand in the school, I'm sure.
Did you think that the people who come out of the military after the World War, they had more grasp on life or their professions? You said that a lot of GIs were out using the GI Bill as much as they could. They had such life experiences. It must have made the professions themselves somewhat different. You know, having that life experience, having traveled. Would you ever have traveled the way that you did in the Army and the Navy if you had not been in it?
No, I probably wouldn't go any further than just around the community, because we were from a poor family, a poor neighborhood, and things were hard to come by. I would have probably wound up as working as a laborer, as my dad did. Or maybe got some kind of a mediocre job in the community. But the GI Bill was my godsend. I mean, it allowed me to go to school. We had no money. They couldn't have sent me to school. So I could have gone. Without that, I could have a mediocre job somewhere and probably never gotten too far from home. As a lot of kids are today, and they just stay around unless they have an opportunity to do something like that. That's why I don't discourage kids when they say they want to go into service. I don't discourage it at all. I just try to encourage them to go in as a little more than just a private or a beginner. If you're going to go in, you know you're going to go into service. You're not drafted. Go in as high as you can. Do as much as you can to get advanced before you go in there. And that is to get some training, get some officers training. Go in as an officer. If you're eligible to go in as an officer, go as an officer. As a counselor in schools, I used to tell the kids all the time when I talk to them, this is the way to go. If you're interested in the military, here's the way to go. I would give applications for ROTC programs throughout the area, Miami or UC or wherever. I would encourage you to do that.
Well, these are very, very wise words. Do you have anything else that you'd like to say as part of your experience in the Navy and your World War II?
No, but I do want to say thanks for inviting us over. There are some of the other fellows I know have done this. We're a veterans post from here in Green Township. And, we're very active in the community. We do a lot of work with the schools. have programs all year long in the schools. We have flag programs and different elementary, junior high, senior high, and just like the program at Elder that we talked about previously. We do that all the time. And our post, VFW 10380, Creek Township, was recognized as one of the top federal posts in the state of Ohio this past year. So it's because of the work that we're doing.
Community programs.
Community programs. We'd like to do that. And this is part of it. This is part of it. Letting you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.